Welcome to Consultants and Money, the podcast for solo consultants who want financial clarity without the overwhelm. I'm your host, Erica Goody, CPA, bookkeeping, and CFO partner, and a fellow corporate ship jumper who built a business with balance in mind. Each week, we talk about the real money stuff, from keeping your books clean to calming cash flow chaos, saving on taxes, and planning for what's next, so you can focus on your clients and enjoy your life. A quick note, this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only, not financial, accounting, or legal advice. Be sure to talk to a professional who understands your specific situation before making any decisions. Welcome back to the Consultants and Money podcast. I am Erica. Today I am joined with Jillian Johnsrud. Jillian never expected to be able to retire early, so she hatched a plan to retire often. Inspired by the idea of sabbatical years, she set out to sprinkle retirements throughout her life. At 40, she has taken over a dozen mini retirements. These allowed her to pursue dreams like living abroad, traveling to 27 countries, adopting 4 kids, plus 2 biological kids, investing in real estate, and touring the U.S. in a camper. Jillian has taught, coached, and wrote about mini retirements for almost a decade. She hosts the Retire Often podcast, which I'm a huge fan of, and is a popular speaker and consultant for mini retirements. She lives in Montana, where she spends time in her garden drinking tea. Jillian, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
I really am a fan of your podcast, and so I'm just, starry-eyed to have you here and so appreciative that you would come onto my podcast. And what we're going to talk about today is actually your new book coming out that I'm so excited for. So welcome here. Thank you.
Thank you. This is awesome.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to get a pre-read of your book, and I read that thing cover to cover from a hammock, which felt appropriate.
Nice.
And and it was great. So I'm excited to talk about mini retirements today. I think this concept is fantastic because in American corporate culture, we are just trained on retirement, period. Nothing before or after, just retirement. Save your money, count your days, have a plan for when you turn 65, maybe if you're lucky 55, but not a day sooner, and wait for that moment. And so I just think this idea of mini retirements and pulling the enjoyment of life forward into the current is beautiful and necessary and possible. And I just love that you are talking about it. I don't hear anybody else talking about it the way you do. So thank you for your service to the public here. Could you tell us, if somebody hasn't heard of you or a mini retirement, what the heck is a mini retirement?
Yeah, so I define a mini retirement and there's lots of names you can use. You can call it a sabbatical, a gap year, career break, hiatus, kind of whichever one like you kind of vibe with, go with that term. But I define it with 3 characteristics. The first one is a month or longer. I find a month is kind of that minimum effective dose. Some people do 6 months or 2 years, but at least a month. The second characteristic is stepping away from your primary career, your primary like 9 to 5 type of job. So for most people, that does mean like a big adventure or travel or hobbies. But for some people, it does look like a career pivot or volunteering or acquiring new skills. So it doesn't have to be nothing that feels professional, but stepping away from your primary. And then the third characteristic is to focus on something that matters to you, something that's really meaningful.
That is beautiful. So I have a question. And this is a personal question, because as I was reading your book, I thought, oh my gosh, did I go on a 2-year mini retirement and I didn't know it? I left my corporate career to be a full-time parent because I felt like I couldn't do it all, right? If you're a parent listening to this, it is hard to do it all. I don't have to tell you that. And I stepped away from my career fully, wound up being for 2 years to be a full-time parent, and it was wonderful, and I loved it. Does that count?
Absolutely. And that's what I want people to start to reimagine is there's a lot of ways that you can naturally and easily fit these into your working careers. It's really common for people to maybe take a few months off after college, or to take time off to be a parent, or if you get laid off, you might be unemployed for 3 or 4 months. And so you can use these natural breaks and just add maybe a little bit more intention and a little bit more planning. And if you kind of have this idea of mini retirements in your head, you can start to financially prepare for that so that when the opportunity arises, you're going to switch jobs and your new employer says, "Hey, when can you start?" You're like, "I could start in November." And they're like, "Could you do October?" And you're like, "Okay, that gives me 2 months. Yeah, I can do October." And you can just start to build it in because you have the intention and you have the financial plan in place.
I love that. And I love that you mentioned unfortunately layoffs. And we're
Hmm.
recording this in 2025. The economy is what the economy is this year, and
Yeah.
it's varied, right? And there are
Yeah.
people getting laid off, and layoff does not feel good. I've never been
Mm-mm.
personally laid off. I've watched my friends get laid off at the company I was at. I came into adulthood in 2007,
Yeah.
and I experienced 2008 layoffs with watching my peers get laid off,
Hmm.
and that was extremely difficult. And I think it is natural and allowed to feel very all of the things in that
Yeah.
moment. Feel bad, like, that does not feel good, it's worrisome, you can panic, but I think, as you mentioned, with a little financial planning, right, we should always be planning for any rainy day, which we talk a lot about here on this podcast, but you have the opportunity to pivot that moment to be, yes, something that you need to plan for your next career step, but it doesn't all have to be bad, and you could be intentional in a positive way about that time too. You'll never get that time back
Yeah.
without a career, without a job that you have to go to, and is there a way that you could intentionally use that? So thank you for mentioning that unfortunate but maybe opportunistic situation.
Yeah. So it's one of the things I kind of teach in the book as well. How do we pack a mini retirement go bag? I used to watch like NCIS and they would have like this little duffel bag behind their desk with change of clothes and their passport and like toiletries. So if something unexpected happened, they didn't have to go home and start packing. They could just grab this bag and get on a plane. And we can do the same thing for mini retirements. And the process I like people to think through is what are a couple 1 month like adventures that you would be interested in. Some of them can be based on season. Like if you love downhill skiing, maybe you have a winter one. If you want to do a road trip, maybe that's a summer one. Some of them, if you were able to travel versus I have to stay home and do this. And if you come up with a couple of those, 4 or 5 different 1 month plans, and then you set aside the money for that, maybe might only be $1,000, $5,000 when those unexpected things happen because they can have a lot of a negative emotion. And when we're stuck in negative emotion, it's really hard to think creatively, to think optimistically, to have that motivation. But if you've already done the emotional labor when you're in a good spot and you've already set aside the money when like you felt financially secure, it makes it much more possible and much easier to, like, emotionally pivot, like, you might still have a few days or a week where you're like, "I'm really depressed, this sucks." But then,
Sure.
like, you pull up your Google Doc and you're like, "You know what? Actually, there's some of the stuff I really wanna do, and I've got the money set aside. Yeah, let's go do this." It can be an amazing opportunity.
Julie and I actually, as you're saying this reminds me, I have a friend who we had this conversation a few months ago. She's working at a corporation, she has a corporate job, and that company's just going through a lot of change right
Mm,
now, as I'm sure, there's a lot of companies doing this. And she made a comment, "If I get laid off, me and the
mhm.
kids are driving across the country to go to XYZ," and she named all
Yeah.
these places, and in the way she said it, obviously she was not currently laid off, and she hasn't been
Yeah.
laid off since that point, but the way she said it was with such positivity and
Mhm.
excitement. I think you're
Yeah.
right, like, she was in a good mental place is in a good mental place when she says that,
Yeah.
and should the unfortunate happen occur with her job
Mhm.
currently, I, maybe as a friend, would be like, "Hey, remember 3 months ago when you said this
Yeah.
would happen?"
Yeah.
And she might be like, "Oh, yeah, I did say that," and there was some intentionality at that point that you could lean back on, so I love that recommendation. It's always fun to daydream. We can all daydream, right?
Yeah.
It's
It's
okay.
worth an hour of your time to have this in place because it might be a layoff. It might be your mom gets sick and you need to take FMLA. There's a lot of different things that happen. Actually, my very first mini retirement was because I had a miscarriage.
Mm.
And for a lot of people, a miscarriage is like a small blip on their, path to building a family. For me, it bulldozed me. I was just overwhelmingly devastated, in part because I had coped with all of the pain and trauma in my life by numbing and avoiding it. And this event unlocked it, and it was like an avalanche that I couldn't get out from underneath of. And my employer was like, "Yeah, this is a lot. We don't know what to do with you. You're just crying all the time." And so they actually gave me a month off paid and just said, like, "Go figure it out. Like, best of luck. Hopefully when you come back, like, you'll have pulled your crap together a little bit." And my best friend and I, she was just coming back from living abroad. And so we got in my Honda Civic and we did a month-long road trip, coast to coast, from Washington, D.C. to Seattle and back. And it was perfect. Like, we stayed with family and friends and slept on people's couches and went camping and ate candy for breakfast and, like, just looked at the cornfields and then the mountains and then the ocean and almost got trampled by bison. And it was just, like, very healing, very cathartic, an amazing opportunity for her and I. But it's also one of those things that we have seasons in our life that have expiration dates. Like, it's not going to last forever. And I've really tried to lean into those different seasons of my life. And that's one that, like, is expired now. I don't sleep on the frozen ground. I can't eat candy for breakfast. Like, I'm so glad I did that at 24 because I'm never doing it again. But it was amazing at 24. So, kind of thinking through, what are those things that if I don't do it in the next 5 or 10 years, it's just not going to happen. And I sometimes that grief or that, like, regret, preemptive regret, can help give us the motivation to do the hard thing to make this happen. Because if we know, man, in 10 years, I would really regret that I missed this opportunity, it can get us through some of the logistics.
I call that the foresight of hindsight,
Ah,
where you think, okay, what is Erica in 10 years going to think
uh-huh.
about this moment in time? What will I look back and think about myself
Yeah.
and what the choice I made at that time? And I've used that frame to choose things like leaving corporate to go be a full-time parent. Like,
Yeah.
in when I'm 50, will I think that I should have just kept pushing through, or that I needed to take some time off to be the parent I felt like I couldn't be otherwise? And that has been really a good frame to move forward with, I think, in
Yeah.
some areas where our gut instinct is like, just keep going. This is what culture tells me to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Jillian, we have a lot of, probably mostly, entrepreneurs or wannabe
Mhm.
entrepreneurs, soloists, people who want to start
Yeah.
consulting businesses because they are just beautifully wise in their own industry. Is somebody who's an entrepreneur, do they even have the option of a mini retirement, especially somebody who doesn't have necessarily an agency or a full team of people supporting them where they can just sign off and know that the team is doing it? Is this even an option for somebody who's an entrepreneur like that?
That's definitely the spot I'm in. I've been doing this creative work online for 10 years, and it is it's a double it's like a negative and a positive. So, it is so much more logistical work versus being an employee. Whenever employees are like, "Well, you're self-employed, so it's, like, super easy for you. You're your own boss. You can't say no." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, you have no idea. So much harder." It's so much more work up front, and you have to deal with a lot of emotional narratives about stepping away from your business. But not only do you get the full benefits of the mini retirement, I think there's additional benefits for entrepreneurs because it's so much work to prepare for it. So it's a little bit like spring cleaning, or even for us, we used to do really long road trips. And before we left, we would rent out our house. So we had to clean out all the closets. We had to clean out all the stuff. We had to organize. We had to declutter. We had to deep clean everything because, strangers were going to be living in our house. And it made the week or two before the trip crazy stressful. It was so much more work to leave. But we came home to a perfectly organized, perfectly decluttered, clean and tidy house. So you get more benefits on the back end. And it's the same for entrepreneurs. It's a lot more work on the front end. In the book, I go through basically 4 steps of how you have to prepare your business. And for a 9 to 5 employee, this might take 2 months. For a self employed person, this might take 3 to 6 months. It's a longer process. The first is to simplify. There are things in our business that are slightly broken, but it's easier to deal with it broken than to fix it.
I'm
To just
guilty of
like
that. Yes.
manually log something, you're like, well, that only takes 10 minutes a week. And to set up to set it up or to fix it would take like 2 hours. So just every week you do the 10-minute thing. So you don't have to like do it the proper way. And so you have to go through and you have to simplify all those things that we've added complexity because it's us and we know how to do it and it doesn't take that much time, it doesn't take that much energy. It's probably not the simplest way, but it works. So you have to go through and you actually have to simplify everything. And then the second step is you have to automate things. There's a lot of stuff that it's easy for us just do it manually, do it by hand. It might take 5 or 10 minutes. And then to set up the automation takes more time, it takes more thought, more energy, but you have to automate as much as you can. And then the third one, which is surprisingly emotionally painful for a lot of people, is you have to document. So, what is the process that you do? What are those things? How do you respond to sales emails? And this, I say it's a little bit emotionally because oftentimes as solopreneurs, we think, but it's all of my expertise. It's all of my magic. Like there's no process here to document. Everything is a unique magical creation. And I'm
I
like,
am the process, right?
yes, yes, it's from my brilliance that this happens. And I'm like, oh, there might be a little bit of a pattern. Like there might be a little bit of consistency, thing to thing that you kind of do. So you have to document it. But when you do those first 3 steps, then you can delegate because now it's simple, it's automated, it's documented. Now you can delegate some of these tasks. And for anyone who's ever tried to hire an assistant and did not do the first 3 steps, and you just hoped that they could kind of jump in and do those things for you, and it was a hot mess, that's why. That's why it didn't work. And so you get through all of this, and it's such a pain, and it's so difficult. But then what happens is when you come back, and I would say just start with a month off. Like, don't do a year, don't do 6 months. Like, it's a learning curve. Be like, I'm going to do a month off. And if it goes amazing, do a month off every year and kind of build up from there. But you come back and the business that used to take you 40 hours a week because you've simplified and automated and documented and delegated some things, maybe it only takes you 30 hours a week. And so a lot of entrepreneurs are like, huh. So either I can kind of like up level my personal life, can like start coaching the kids soccer, I can do this yoga class or whatever that might be. Or if they're in a different season, in a different headspace, now they feel refreshed, they feel creative, they feel motivated because they've had a month off. And a lot of entrepreneurs come back and go, I can tackle that next big thing. That thing that I had, that cool idea, that thing that I've been wanting to do, but I didn't have the time, I didn't have the energy. Now I have an extra 10 hours a week and I feel pretty jazzed. And so a lot of entrepreneurs come back and really expand their business in meaningful ways. So yeah, it's more work, but there's also a lot more benefits. And the one caveat I will say for entrepreneur people that is also different from 9 to 5 employees is that I wouldn't completely disconnect. I would do about 10% of the work you normally do. So if you work 40 hours a week, I would maintain your business for 4 hours a week because those last 4 hours are like the most essential tasks. They're the tasks that you really couldn't simplify or automate or document or delegate. They're the highest risk tasks. And what I see happen if people try to completely disconnect is that 4 hours of rest and relaxation they gain by not working actually creates a disproportionate amount of stress. Like they're actually happier if they just have 4 hours a week to check in, to make sure things are fine, to put out any fires. Like then they can rest more and kind of sink in to their time off versus like, it might be burning down, but I'm not going to look. It might be burning down, but I'm not going to look is actually harder, especially the first once or twice. Then you also come back and you saw what broke, like what part of this didn't work. And now you know like what parts of your business you really do need to fix.
I love that. I can totally feel what you're saying when the worrying about what you're missing is
Yeah.
worse than the small amount of time
Yeah.
to fix or to, like, check in.
Hmm.
The one thing, like, I just went on vacation last week as we're recording this, and I didn't sometimes there are vacations where I'm like, "I am gonna take email off my phone. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
look at anything. This is a vacation where I wanna completely disconnect," and those are fine, and I love those. But this particular week, I said, "Oh, I'm gonna leave my email on my phone, and I'll just check it, like, 10 minutes in the morning,"
Yeah.
and it did not stress me out. It was like, "Oh, cool, like, I got all this stuff that I know I'm not gonna read." Like, I knew that I wasn't gonna start working, but it was also it's nice, like, "Oh, okay, that person emailed me, that's gonna be waiting for me when I get
Yeah.
back," and there was no fire that I was gonna come back
Yeah.
to, and then I shut it down after 10 minutes, and I was good,
Mhm.
and I went on along my day, and sometimes I don't have enough willpower, so sometimes I will sync and unsync my email for
Yeah.
those 10 minutes because, like, I have just a muscle habit of touching that email button on my phone. I'm sure I'm
100%.
not the only person, but it
I
is a
do it with
real
social media too. I just
yes.
uninstall and reinstall like
Yes,
Instagram,
yes.
Thread.
Yes, definitely. Because if I don't, I'm like, "Why did I just press that icon? Why did I
Yes.
do that?"
Yeah.
Like an
100%.
addict. I
Yeah.
probably am an addict on that, but that's a story for another podcast.
And one thing specific, I don't talk about this in the book because it's kind of a short chapter just for self employed, but for people who do work one on one with clients, if you're in kind of a service based business, one thing that works great is, obviously you're going to inform everyone before you leave.
Too many consultants find out in April that they owe way more than expected in taxes. I help you track profit, plan ahead, and save for taxes without jargon or overwhelm. Ready for less stress? Go to ericagoody.com. Fill out the connection form, and we'll set up a no pressure free meeting to see if we're a good fit. I'll leave a link in the show notes.
You're going to send out a little email like, hey, and you've probably prepared them for like a month or two before. Like, I need to wrap this project up or we need to kind of get this done. I'm not going to be available the month of, October. But before you leave, sending out an email that says, okay, like now I'm starting my leave. Here's the cool thing I'm doing. But if you have an emergency and if you need something, here's my cell phone. Please call me. And it's really funny when you invite people to call you if something's important, that they go, "No, it's not important." Like, "No, it's fine." Like, "No, that could totally wait." Like, where if you just have like an out of office response, sometimes people are like, "Oh, this is really urgent." And especially, I don't know, there's a psychology of giving people your phone number because they really don't want to call. Like, they'll email you. They'll 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 do these less direct, but they have to feel very justified to actually get on the phone and call you. And so it kinda helps people self-filter how urgent is if I need to
Absolutely.
call this person.
Yeah, they're self-selecting. They're telling you. I mean, and if that phone rings is bad, right? And then you can show up for your client. You could be the person
Yeah.
who shows up for your client. But I would gather, and you've probably seen this with your clients, I bet nobody ever calls.
No, no, and if they do, one, it might be a legit emergency that is also something they know you can handle quickly. I had an emergency. I'm currently, as we're recording this, I'm recording the audiobook for my book. So I'm reading it and I show up at the studio and they don't have a copy of the book. He was like, "So did you bring a copy?" And I was like, "No, is I supposed to bring a copy?" And we're supposed to be recording right now. I am calling on the phone every phone number I have because, like, right now in this moment, I need someone to take like 3 minutes and mail the studio, like, email us the studio a copy of this book. So it's usually not only an emergency, but something that they can handle and like they know you can handle quickly because they know you're not going to be like, oh, yeah, I'll take on this 30-hour project for you while I'm camping.
I have a 3-minute
Um,
ask for you, and I know you
yes,
won't be mad at me for asking you this.
yes,
Yes.
100%. But the other thing is if people are very unreasonable and demanding and don't respect your needs as a human to do this, that's good information too. Because not every client's a good client. There's
Yeah.
usually a small percentage of them that are a disproportionate pain in the butt, and they tend not to be the most profitable ones because of that, and I think taking mini retirements in a certain way helps you self-select for better clients. For clients that, like, they don't have tons of emergencies, they don't do a bunch of stuff last minute, like, they plan ahead, they're reasonable of, like, their demands on your time, and the ones that are like, I'm gonna have this huge ask, and I'm gonna give you 24 hours notice," like, they're gonna probably leave at some point if you continue to take mini retirements, and your business will probably be better for it.
I feel like you've just framed up because you are good at what you do, but I'm just now seeing it like as especially as a self-employed person, you've
Mhm.
framed up like of this funnel. It's like a filter. Like if you're at the beach and you got that little sand tray where
Oh,
you're getting all the little sand out and all the big stuff's at, you've started with refining your systems and
yeah,
making things simpler and cleaning things out. And then you go on this mini retirement and you actually continue to filter and simplify potentially clients that are
yep,
non ideal. You walk back into your business after this mini retirement, or maybe a few months later in this case, by the way, standard events have to happen. But you have a clean and efficiently operating business, which means more profitable
yeah,
from a time standpoint. You have
mhm,
clients that you adore, and it sounds like adore you. And likely you've given them some ideas and motivation to watch somebody go on a mini retirement and to step away from their work for a month. You have probably just shown them something they didn't know existed and
mhm,
perhaps inspired them and encouraged them in a way that you might have no clue that you did. So
yeah,
you've, to your point, walked back to this beautifully clean house that we all love to live in a clean house. It just feels
yeah,
better. And now you get to work in that environment. That sounds almost like everybody should do one just because it's necessary to make your life better. Like it forces you to do the work. I always joke that we invite people over for dinner every 2 weeks just so I clean the
yeah,
house. Yeah. Like, I wouldn't do it
yeah,
otherwise. There's no one who's gonna see it, who's gonna care.
yeah,
It's clean enough. It's not terrible. But somebody comes over, I'm scrubbing that toilet and making sure stuff's off the counter. And
yep,
and I jokingly invite people over every 2 weeks just to get it done. And so it sounds like what you're saying, like, go on a mini retirement, force yourself to make
yep.
your business the best version of itself.
Yeah, there are things that are important, but they're not urgent. Documentation in your business, it's important, but it probably doesn't have to get done this week. Like automating those things, it's important, but is it like a today task? Like today's pretty busy. And so a mini retirement's the perfect motivation. It's like the carrot to the stick. It gives a specific timeline, but it also gives a nice reward. Like if you do all of this like stupid, boring hassle work of cleaning up your business, then you get like this amazing vacation or trip, or you're gonna go do this cool thing. And so it really helps, yeah, take those things that are important, but also make them urgent.
Amazing. That's so good. I hope everybody rewinds this past 10 minutes, listens to it again, and then keeps listening to the podcast. Okay, before I know we're getting close to time, and I want to make sure we hit on because this is a money podcast.
Yeah.
I think knee jerk reaction could be that a mini retirement sounds expensive and it's only
Mhm.
for rich people, people who save a lot of money. Maybe it's not for me. How do you talk about this in your book? Can you high level talk about the financial planning around mini retirements and who this is for and who this is not from a financial perspective?
Yeah. So let me start with who it's not for, because it's a pretty small group. I would say if you're like drowning in debt and can't pay your bills and feel like you're about to be evicted, we need to figure that stuff out first. Like, we need to find a baseline. But if you're at a baseline to where you could start thinking about saving a little bit of money, then you're in the like 85% of people that this is for because it's not it the cost of a mini retirement is proportional to your income. So, there's this question, well, what if you're a low earner or a high earner? And it's kind of, in some ways, on the financial side, it's actually a little bit easier if you're a low earner, I think. Because if you make $2,000 a month and you're going to take a month off, you need to replace that 2,000. Okay, that's kind of a manageable number. And then I recommend not spending more than 50% of your take home pay for an extra mini retirement expense. So if you bring home 10,000 a month, maybe you spend 5,000 additional a month on this mini retirement. But if you only bring home 2,000 a month, that's an extra $1,000. And it works really well because you're accustomed to your lifestyle. Like if you spend 2,000 a month, you're accustomed to maybe camping or road trips or staying with friends. Like that feels like your normal life. Where if you spend 10,000 a month, you might want like to stay at a Marriott or a Super 8. Like you're like, I'm not going to sleep in my car. That's not where I'm sleeping for the night. I'm sleeping on a bed. So it's very proportional to your income. So if you earn less income, you don't have that much to save. In our $2,000 expense, you have 2,000 and maybe another $1,000. You have 3,000. Well, $3,000 over, say, you're going to do this every 3 years. That's $100 a month. You could dog sit like once. Once a month, you could dog sit. You could babysit like once a month. You could mow someone's yard once a month. And every 3 years, you could do this really incredible adventure. And then as your income grows, if it does, as you make more financial progress, then you can start tackling the more expensive things on your bucket list. But you can start with the more affordable ones. And if you feel like, you're making 20, 30, 40,000 a year and there's not much room, there's actually a lot of other levers that you can pull to make this even more affordable. So like I said, when we used to travel in a camper, we would rent out our house while we were gone for $2,500 a month. That covered all of our camping fees. So it was it cost us the exact same amount to travel full time as it did to live at home. Same expenses. So our additional cost wasn't 50%. It was kind of zero. I know people, if you're really trying to be more thrifty, more economical, they rent out their house when they leave and then they go do like trusted house sitters. Or they do like a work volunteer thing. They like work on a lavender farm in Croatia and they get like free accommodation. And so they're making money by not being home and staying for free. So there's a lot of ways to make this more affordable. I have a little section in the book, this idea of what if you took a month off every other year? How much additional would you have to save? And based on this, you're covering 100% of your salary plus an extra 50%. It's 6.5%. So one, you could maybe increase your income, which is great if you're a low earner. I wouldn't try to like maybe reduce your expenses by 6.5. I would say earn another 100, 200, $300 a month is probably your best bet. But if you're more moderate or high earner, you can reduce those expenses by 6.5%. And because it's not, one of the things that's a bummer about saving for traditional retirement is it might be 40 years away and it feels so abstract. And it feels like you're never going to get there anyways. But if you say, you know what, in 2 years, I'm going to take a month off and I'm going to go stay at the beach in Mexico and I'm going to eat street tacos every day. Well, if you give up Chipotle every Friday that you usually eat at your desk, that's like your Friday routine. You say, I'm not going to get Chipotle every Friday. Instead, in 2 years, I'm going to be eating street tacos in Mexico. I'm just going to trade this one experience for this much better one that's going to happen in 2 years. Legitimately, Chipotle every day would pay for 3 meals a day and a margarita of street tacos for a whole month in Mexico.
Fair.
So you're kind of trading, it's not really deprivation. You're trading one thing that you like for a different thing that you really want and will be more meaningful or enjoyable to you.
So you're saying that 6.5%, because I like to get into the
Yeah.
nitty gritty of the numbers. Say, because I want to use even numbers and easy to
Mhm.
numbers to do in our head. If I make $10,000 a
Mhm.
month, I need to save 6.5% every month
Mhm.
to kind of
Yeah.
start that fund. So
So
$10,000, 650,
yep, 650.
650 a month. You set up in an automatic transfer
Mhm.
into a different bank account so your eyes don't see it, and it's just collecting on its own. And meanwhile, you've put your expenses somewhere, or maybe you were saving money without intentions. How often do we like,
Yeah.
well, I don't know, my bank account's growing and it's growing, but we don't really ever have an intention of
Yeah.
what that means. And maybe this is just, as we talked about earlier, setting the intention of like, I am going to put that money in this other account for the purpose of
Mhm.
this mini retirement that sounds really amazing. And I'm going to enjoy in this season of life that maybe I won't be able to enjoy when I'm 65, or enjoy in the same way. Or maybe not to be morbid, but maybe I don't make it to 65. Like nothing
Yeah.
is promised.
Yeah.
And we would hate to wait for all of the things that we want to do for a time that we're not promised.
Yeah.
So
100%. And like I said, that's kind of your worst case scenario as far as like the maximum amount you would need to spend, especially if you have a longer mini retirement. I interviewed one couple on my podcast that they lived in Boston. They had two little kids. They both quit their jobs and they moved to France for a year. And they spent for the whole year in France was like $40,000.
wow.
Their childcare back home for their two kids was $40,000.
Oh my gosh. I
Like,
believe it.
like not any of their other and they rented out their house while they were gone. Like it can be massively more affordable. But there again, I just encourage people like if this idea is interesting, you don't even necessarily have to plan out like, okay, I'm gonna do this in 6 months and here's exactly what I'm gonna do. Just start moving in that direction. Start adding kind of that filter in when you go to like get a new car and you're looking at your car payments, you're like, do I want the $600 car payment or do I want the $300 car payment? Because that $300 car payment might mean I could take a mini retirement every 3 years. Which do I want more? Slightly nicer car or these 10 next cool adventures that I have planned?
I love that frame of mind. That's so good. We get so sucked into, well, the Joneses, and we see their car. They just got a new car. They've got whatever feature that we think we want, or whatever size car we think we want. But I will tell you, when you tell that neighbor, Mr.
Mhm.
Jones, that you are leaving for France for a year or for a
Yeah.
month and you're not going to work or check your email, that person is going to want to keep up with your Joneses, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's, it's funny. Mini retirements, like, they seem, I think from people on the outside, it seems really complex and really confusing, and it must be really expensive. And it seems almost impossible. But once, I hope, like, after you felt like after you read the book, you're like, oh, actually, this isn't super complicated. Like,
No,
this
not at
actually kind
all.
of makes sense. Like, and it almost seems like too easy. Like, you're like, wait, why haven't I done a dozen of these? Like, if this is
Yes,
all I required.
every time we talk, I listen to your podcast, I read your book, I'm like, "I should do that."
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna go do that. What should I do in my amazing adventure for 1 month? And
Yeah.
it is so inspiring because it doesn't sound overly complicated. It
Yeah.
doesn't sound impossible for either time or financial reasons. You really, in the book, lay it out so clearly, and
Mhm.
you do a great job of I can be a little cynical. Anybody who knows me is laughing at that right now. I can be very cynical. You do a wonderful job of the holes that somebody would poke in this
Yep.
idea. You do a wonderful idea, or a wonderful job of showing us why those aren't true and how to combat those and how to think
Yep.
through the mindset of this isn't right for me because I'm too important at work, because I don't have
Yep.
enough money, because what will happen to my career after that? Because we have all these very legitimate fears, which
Yes.
then stops us from thinking further, and we just shut down the idea and move on. And your book is a wonderful hand-holding of,
Yeah.
I hear your fears. Your fears are legitimate. Let's talk through them and show you how they're not there, or they can work for you, or a path through them. And it's just so beautifully done. And I appreciate everything you've written there in such a digestible and affordable format. Like a book,
Mhm.
listeners know I love reading. I love
Yeah.
books. Books are just have so much great information, and to distill everything you've done. You have so many good resources, but to have this one place to just
Yeah.
as a starting point in a book is just really beautiful. So I thank you for that.
I appreciate it. I have heard every objection. I've heard every fear. I've done this one-on-one work with people. I've done group coaching, every internalized thing. And the thing I love about one-on-one coaching is that you can't be vague. You can't be like, well, just go have a conversation with your employer. Just, ask him for a month off. Because your client sitting in front of you, they're like, okay, what exactly do I say? Like, wait, how exactly do I frame this conversation? And so it is very tactical in that here's exactly how you do this. But yeah, I've heard every fear. And I tried to make the book really positive and upbeat, but it is a little bit like you have 97 fears and we're going to go through these one by one, baby. Like,
You do. You don't skirt around it. And
yeah.
that's what makes it good and real, because then what do you do at the end of the book? You don't have any excuses
Yeah.
then.
Yeah.
So, well,
Hopefully
thank
not.
you. So, I think at the time, tell us when the book comes out.
Yeah, September 9th.
Okay. So, I think the plan is when this airs, this should be a little after September 9th. So, where can people tell us the title of the book and where can people find
Mhm.
it?
Yeah, the book is Retire Often. It is available everywhere. But if you go to retireoften.com, that's all the things. You can find where to buy the book from all different retailers, free worksheets, group coaching. I have a super unhinged newsletter. What's it about? I don't know. It's a surprise to all of us. So if that's your jam,
I'm on the
that's there
newsletter. It's
too.
true. And I keep reading it.
It's, when do I send it? I don't know.
It's a surprise.
It's a surprise
Just
to everyone.
what's going to be in it? It's a surprise, but
We
it's
don't
always
know.
good. Well, we appreciate you so much for coming on, Jillian. Thank you so much. We will leave links to that in the show notes. So if you are excited to read that, go grab yourself a copy. I assure you it is a great read. And we just appreciate you being here. Thank you so much, Jillian.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining me today. If you found this episode helpful, share it with a fellow consultant who might need it too. And until next time, here's to cleaner books, calmer cash flow, and more time for what matters most to you.